Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to tackle something that almost sounds like science fiction, but it's very real. Software-defined perimeters, SDPs.
Yeah, those SDPs, they're definitely getting a lot of buzz lately.
Yeah.
But do they actually live up to all the hype? Well, we're going to find out.
That's right. We've got some great material here to help us unpack this whole SDP thing. There's an excerpt that explains what SBPs are, how they work, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it talks about this idea of making your online assets invisible to anyone who shouldn't have access.
So basically, an invisibility cloak for your data.
You got it.
I mean, that sounds incredible, but how do you actually make something invisible in the digital world? It's not like you can just throw a sheet over your servers.
Right. It's definitely not magic, but it's a pretty clever approach.
Okay, I'm all ears. So how does it work? How do you make a network invisible?
Well, imagine a system where only people with the right credentials, using the right device, can even see your network.
And everyone else.
They're left in the dark. They wouldn't even know your network exists.
That's wild. So if they can't see it, they can't attack it, right?
Exactly. It's like a secret club with a super strict bouncer at the door.
Yeah.
Only those with the right credentials and the right device get in.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about building stronger walls. It's about making yourself invisible.
Right. And it's actually a very effective way to reduce your attack surface. Because if attackers can't find your network, they can't exploit it.
So how is this different from a traditional firewall? Don't those also keep the bad guys out?
Well, a firewall is more like a guard at the front gate checking IDs.
Okay, yeah.
An SDP is more like a secret speakeasy.
Yeah.
During Prohibition, you don't even know it's there unless you have the password and know the secret knock.
So instead of guarding the front door, SDPs make the entire house disappear. That's pretty slick.
Exactly. And this approach is deeply rooted in the zero trust model, which is becoming more and more crucial in today's security landscape.
Right, zero trust. That whole never trust, always verify thing. That seems to be everywhere these days. But how does that actually play out in an SDP?
Well, in the context of SDP, zero trust means that no one, and I mean no one, gets access to anything unless they are explicitly authorized and their device checks out. It's kind of like airport security. Everyone goes through screening no matter who they are.
Okay, I see the analogy. No special treatment. Everyone gets checked out.
Precisely. So by combining this invisibility with a strict zero trust policy, SDPs create a really strong security posture.
Makes sense. So to really understand how this all works, we need to dig into the 4 core principles that underpin SDP, right?
Absolutely. These principles are what make SDPs so unique and effective.
All right, lay 'em on me. What are the 4 pillars of this invisible fortress?
Okay, so first and foremost, trust is never implicit. Unlike traditional models, where you might trust anyone inside the network, SDP assumes no one is trustworthy until proven otherwise.
So no more assuming that just because someone's on the inside, they're automatically good. Yeah, in today's world, that's a pretty naive assumption.
You got it. And that leads us to the second principle, no inbound connection.
Inbound connection.
Right, this is what truly makes the network invisible. Authorized users can send requests out, but no one can initiate a connection from the outside.
Wait, so how do people even get on the network if there are no inbound connections? It sounds like a digital dead end.
It's not a dead end. It's more like a one-way street. Think of it like making a phone call you can dial out, but you can't receive a call unless you've already given your number out.
Okay, that's a helpful analogy. So you're saying the network reaches out to the user, not the other way around.
Precisely. Authorized users connect to an SDP controller, which verifies their identity and checks their device. Only then can they get access, and it's all done through secure, encrypted tunnels.
So it's like the network is extending a secure hand to the user, pulling them in. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and very secure. This outbound-only approach dramatically reduces your attack surface because there are no open doors for hackers to just waltz through.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got no implicit trust and no inbound connections. What's the third principle? What else makes SDP different from, say, just having a really strong firewall?
Well, this is where it gets even more interesting. SDP is all about application segmentation, not network segmentation.
Application segmentation, fill me in.
Sure. Traditional security often focuses on dividing the network into different zones. Right. Like a DMZ, a guest network, things like that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
But with SDP, you control access at the application level. So it doesn't matter where the application is on the network, you control who has access to it specifically.
Oh, I see. So it's not about where you are on the network, but what you're trying to access.
Exactly. And it's much more granular and easier to manage than traditional network segmentation.
Gotcha. So Instead of building a wall around your entire property, you're putting individual locks on each valuable item.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we're 3 for 3. No implicit trust, no inbound connections, and application-level segmentation. What's the fourth and final piece of this SDP puzzle?
Right, the fourth principle recognizes that the traditional concept of a network perimeter is becoming less and less relevant.
Because everyone's moving to the cloud, right?
Exactly. We're in a cloud-first world now. So this principle emphasizes leveraging the internet securely. SDP secures the connections between users and applications, regardless of where they are located.
So it's not about building a fortress around your network anymore. It's about securing the connections between individuals and the applications they need.
Precisely. SDP provides that consistent security no matter where you're working from.
That's really important these days with so many people working remotely or in hybrid environments.
We got it. SDP is tailor-made for the modern workplace.
Wow, okay. We've covered a lot of ground already, but now I'm really curious, what are the practical benefits of adopting SDP? Does it really deliver on all these promises?
Well, that's a great question, and it's what we'll dive into next. We're going to explore how SDP can enhance your security, protect against data breaches, and work seamlessly in the cloud.
This is getting good. I can't wait to hear more. Okay, so we've laid a pretty solid foundation for what software-defined perimeters are all about. Now I'm really curious, what are the actual benefits? Like in the real world, how does this actually make a difference?
Well, the source material actually highlights a number of advantages, especially in today's threat landscape, which is, getting crazier by the day. First and foremost, SDP can really enhance security.
Yeah, that's what everyone wants, right? But how does it actually make things more secure? Like, is it really that much better than what we already have?
Well, remember that invisibility cloak analogy we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
SDP basically makes your network invisible to anyone who's not supposed to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Hackers, unauthorized users, they just can't target what they can't find.
So it's not even about having stronger defenses. It's about making yourself a much smaller target to begin with. That's a really interesting approach.
Exactly. And it makes SDP incredibly effective against a whole bunch of cyber threats. DDoS attacks, where they try to overwhelm your network with traffic, ransomware, where they lock up your data and demand payment.
Oh, yeah. Those sound pretty scary.
Yeah, they are. But SDP can help protect against those.
What about data breaches? I mean, we hear about those all the time. Can SDP help prevent those too?
Definitely. SDP's granular control over access, that micro-segmentation we talked about, can really help to minimize the damage of a data breach.
Right, micro-segmentation. Remind me how that works again.
Okay, so think about it this way. In a traditional network, if someone breaks in, they often have access to a lot of different areas. It's like a burglar getting into a house and having free reign to roam around.
So they can just steal whatever they want or cause a lot of damage.
Exactly. But with SDP and micro-segmentation, you can control access down to the individual application level. So even if an attacker does manage to get in, they're only limited to what they are specifically authorized to access. It's like having a separate lock on every single room in your house.
Okay, I get it. So it's all about containing the damage, limiting the blast radius of a potential breach.
Precisely. And this kind of control is super important as organizations continue to, jump into the cloud.
Right, because traditional security solutions don't always play nice with cloud environments. They weren't really designed for that.
Yeah, that's the problem. But SDP is what they call cloud native, meaning it's built to integrate seamlessly with cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, all those big names.
So it can handle both on-premises and cloud environments.
Absolutely. SDP can provide consistent security across all your deployments, no matter where they are.
So it's flexible enough for today's, what do they call it, hybrid IT environments?
That's it. And, all of this ties back into the bigger trend towards zero trust security. SDP is a really important piece of that puzzle.
Okay, so it's not just a cool technology, it's part of a bigger security strategy.
I see.
Well, we've talked about the why of SDP, but now I'm kind of curious about the how. How does all this magic actually happen? Can you walk me through it?
Of course. So it all starts with really solid user verification. Before granting any access, SDP uses a number of methods to make sure someone is actually who they say they are.
No more taking people's word for it, huh? That's the zero trust way.
Exactly. So SDP can use things like multi-factor authentication, where you need more than just a password to log in,
Yeah.
like a code from your phone or something.
Right.
It can also use single sign-on, where you log in once and then you get access to a bunch of different applications.
Makes sense.
Or it might use a protocol called SAML, which is a way for different systems to talk to each other and verify your identity.
Gotcha. So multiple layers of authentication to make sure it's really you. What happens after you've proven you are who you say you are?
Then SDP does device security checks. It's not enough to just know who you are. You also need to be using a device that's, trustworthy.
Right, because you wouldn't want someone logging in from a compromised computer, potentially spreading malware or stealing data.
Exactly. So SDP checks to see if your operating system is up to date, if your security software is current, whether your device has any known vulnerabilities, all that stuff. It might even check to see if your device is on an approved list. And only if your device passes all these checks can you move on to the next step.
So it's a pretty thorough process. What's the final step then? What happens after all those checks?
Once both the user and the device are verified, the SDP creates this secure, encrypted tunnel between the user and the resources they're trying to access.
Okay, so this tunnel, it's like a private connection, right? Protecting all the data that's going back and forth.
Exactly. And it doesn't even matter where you're connecting from home, a coffee shop, on your phone, using cellular data. The tunnel makes sure that your connection stays secure and your data is protected.
Wow, it really is like a personal bodyguard for your data.
Pretty much. And you know what else is really cool? This whole system is software defined,
Oh, yeah.
which means it's way more flexible and adaptable than those old, clunky hardware-based security solutions.
So no more giant firewalls and VPN appliances taking up half your server room.
Nope. You can deploy and manage SDP entirely through software, which makes it much easier to scale, adapt, and integrate into whatever systems you already have.
Well, this has been incredibly informative. We've covered a lot today, from the core principles to the real-world benefits, and even some of the technical details of how it all works. I'm impressed.
It's pretty amazing technology.
Right.
But we're not done yet. The story of SDP, it's still being written, And as we keep relying on these interconnected systems and the cloud just keeps growing, solutions like this are going to become even more important.
Yeah, for sure. So for all our listeners out there, think about it. How could SDP change things for your organization? What kind of challenges could it help you overcome?
Exactly. Ask yourself, could SDP be a good fit for your security strategy?
There's a ton of information out there, so don't be afraid to dive in and learn more. Wow, we've really gone deep down the SDP rabbit hole today, haven't we?
We have. From those core principles to the benefits, even how it all works in practice.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say SDP is a pretty powerful tool, right? Especially in today's world where everything's connected.
Absolutely. It really addresses the challenges of this new world where those traditional network boundaries are kind of fading away.
Yeah, it's funny. At the beginning of our deep dive, we talked about SDP as this invisibility cloak for your digital assets. And now that we've really explored it in detail, I think that analogy is spot on.
It really is,
Mhm.
because it's not about just like building stronger walls or tougher locks. It's about making your valuable assets invisible to anyone who shouldn't be seeing them in the first place. It's a whole new way of thinking about security.
Yeah, and it's not just about hiding, it's about control too, right? With SDP, you have that super granular control over who gets to access what. You can make sure that only the right people with the right devices at the right time can access those resources. It's a level of precision we haven't really seen before.
Exactly. It's like having a personalized security detail for each user in every single application. And, as we move towards this even more interconnected world with data and devices spread across clouds and different locations, that level of control is just going to become more and more vital.
For sure. It's interesting. The source material we've been looking at mentioned that SDP is gaining a lot of traction as companies are moving towards that zero trust model. And it seems like SDP and zero trust, they go hand in hand, don't they?
Absolutely. SDP really provides the foundation for a true zero trust environment. Nowhere is trust just automatically given. Every single access request has to be verified. And honestly, it's really the only way to secure these dynamic, complex IT landscapes that we're dealing with today.
It's true. So as we're wrapping up our deep dive here, I'm curious, could SDP actually become the new standard for online security? Is that where we headed?
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, because as we keep moving towards a world where everything is connected, our cars, homes, cities, the need for secure and flexible security solutions, it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, and it sounds like SDP is ready to step up to the plate.
It really does. With those zero trust principles, its ability to make your network basically invisible and that granular control SDP is in a great position to face those challenges. I think it is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Agreed. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of software-defined perimeters.
It's been a great discussion.
Hopefully everyone listening found this episode insightful and thought-provoking. Maybe it even sparked some ideas.
Yeah, we encourage everyone to keep digging into this topic. See how SDP might fit into your own organization's security strategy.
And until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay secure.